Malmo. Here we are, virtually. TEDxMalmo. Brilliant to be here. Of course, this is a picture of me. Look at me there. It's the picture of the back of my head. In front of, I don't know how many thousand Iron Maiden fans. Well, I hope they're fans anyway. Of course, they could be customers, but we don't like customers in Iron Maiden. Why don't we like customers? Well, we don't like customers because they can walk away. We like fans because we have a relationship, because we're human beings. Goodness me, all those human beings. When was the last time you stood in a muddy field getting cold and wet next to rubbing shoulders with all those wonderful, warm human beings? And we do all these incredible things together. And we've been denied that recently, but that is an aberration. Throughout history, human beings belong together, and we need to be together now more than ever because we've been apart for so long. So whatever we think about a future for us, our future is being together. We do things as human beings that are remarkable when we act together, when we act as a team, when we act in concert. So that picture is something I hope to stand in front of for real again very soon. And that is my future. And in fact, that's also my past. But there's an eternal cycle that goes on in humanity and will go on for time immemorial. We belong together. We like being together. It's actually why we exist. We exist for families. We exist for people. We exist for having fun. And eventually, we will pass on to whatever happens next. And that is our future too. And we need to deal with all of those things. Those are all social things. But of course, technology marches on, and we think that the future is technology. The future is humanity. And technology has to be our servant. We are not slaves to technology, and we will need to deal with those problems as they come up with AI and everything else. It's important to remember, we're the boss here. Technology is here to serve us, to make our lives better, to enable us to do stuff like that. Now, I've had a funny relationship with technology. You might call my brain almost schizophrenic. You've got the left side of the brain, the right side of the brain. I figure that I probably use both at the same time. Here you go. Here's another side of me. Look at that. Look at me looking terribly noble in front of a good old fossil fuel burning size 15 boot carbon footprint. There you are. It's a 747. And I was an airline pilot for 17 years. What? You were in Iron Maiden? Yes, I was. I used to take unpaid leave to go on tour with the band because I actually had a job as an airline pilot. And that involved a lot of technology. That involved a lot of fun. I went to a lot of really crazy places. But you know what it was all about in the end? It was all about humanity. Moving humanity, working with people, working as a team. It was all about that. And technology was simply a component, a cog. Now, I show that because everybody goes, "Oh, isn't that great?" And I say, yeah, it's great, but you know what? There is a future beyond that. So take a look at this. Here's a potential future. I actually invested in this project. Let me see, when you had to have some kind of little inspirational idea, you had to have belief in this project. I invested in this project. This is real, by the way. This is not Photoshop. This is the world's largest aircraft. And the company, HAV, that I invested in, well, we're aiming for zero carbon flight. Yes, you heard it right. Zero, not net zero, not offsetting, not anything else. Zero carbon flight. Using hydrogen fuel cell propulsion and then using maybe a little bit of biofuel or something lurking in the very early production models. But this is zero carbon flight. I've been invited to go to the North Pole on a little expedition to take people, punters, people who would pay to go on a trip to the North Pole in a vehicle like this, come back again in 36 hours in an ensuite bedroom, zero carbon flight. A vehicle that leaves no trace. A vehicle that enables trade Yes, that word trade, actually people trading with countries like in Africa that need to trade, and yet we in the West, we say, oh my God, I'm so guilty about all those food miles and all that carbon. Tell that to the people in Africa who are starving because we feel guilty about importing their produce. But there's a solution. Use technology to create zero carbon flight freighters that will take stuff from the farm direct to the factory. You don't need trains, you don't need cars, you don't need buses, none of that stuff to move the produce around. That's a vision of the future. Here's another project I'm interested in. Look at this, bang, zing. Okay, it's an artist's impression. We're actually flying this vehicle at the moment. It is, in fact, even though it's got a propeller on the back, the vehicle we're flying, okay, it's the world's first edible drone. Well, what use is that? Well, that kind of got me going. I met the guy. I'll get to this later about pubs. I spent a lot of my life in pubs. I wrote books in pubs. I had business meetings in pubs. I'm not always drunk, I should add, but you know, the beer is also an added byproduct, shall we say. So I meet a guy in a pub and he goes, do you know what that is? And he holds up this piece of structure. I said, well, it looks like a bit from the inside of an aeroplane, of the inside of the wing. He said, that exactly. He said, and you could eat it. I went, what? He said, yeah, made of compressed plant material. I said, well, that's wonderful. Well, what's it for? He said, He said, do you know that in the first 2 weeks of a natural disaster, there are no helicopters, no ships, no planes, no airports. Everything is chaotic. People are starving in little communities everywhere. This is the solution. I said, what is it? He said, it's a biodegradable glider that costs about $600, and everyone will feed 50 people for 1 day. Throw it out of the back of an airplane, it'll glide for up to 30 kilometers, GPS guided to wherever it needs to be. It breaks open, it is full of food and or medicine and or whatever you need. Because the postman can come every day. You can throw 20 or 30 of these out of the back of a Hercules C-130, each going to multiple destinations. I went, how cool is that? And it's so cheap and it's easy. So we're flying this and test flying it at the moment. But wait a minute. The world goes, what's the future? A zero carbon flight flying Amazon warehouse comes over London, the airship, and drones go out and come back and go out and come back and recharge on board the airship, electric, zero carbon, clean energy, and or one of these things goes and flies over Africa and chucks out aid out the back, zero carbon, bam, bam, bam. You know, honestly, the mind is a limitless thing. One of the things is, of course, you have to have the vision to imagine it. Now, back to more mundane things. I did talk about the pub. Here is a beer. A picture of the label of a beer. We've just sold 30 million pints of this beer worldwide. I'm very proud of it. I'm a consumer, and lots of Iron Maiden fans are, but we brought this beer out. I want to say this because the future is also traditional as well. And if you want something that is a product which is just about as green as you can be, it's beer production. There's virtually nothing in the production of beer which is wasted. The byproducts of it go to feed cattle, the rest of it goes to make Marmite or yeast extract. The beer itself, terrific. It grows out of the ground, the barley, the hops, all the rest of it. It's a marvelous product. But of course, we can use this and make it locally, and now we're doing that in different countries around the world, Trooper beer. So it's not just Trooper, the original. We've got 8 different types of beer we brew in England, but now we brew in Australia, their own brand. Now we brew in Brazil, their own brand. Chocolate Mango IPA. Whoa, so cool. And you know we use the cocoa nibs. The husk of the cocoa shell has 9 times more caffeine than coffee. And it has all these wonderful bioflavonoids. This is beer that makes you smarter, up to a point. Anyway, never mind. Let's not dwell on the success of beer and on the wonderful benefits of properties of the conviviality brought on by that. I want to just, throw a spanner in the works. This is a ship sinking. You'll all recognize probably, because you've seen the movie, the Titanic. What happens when things go horribly wrong? Imagine you are sailing into the future and suddenly the world hits the buffers. Oh, it just has. So what happens when you think, we're on an unsinkable ship? Why do we need to bother about finding out how the lifeboats work? We're on an unsinkable trajectory going to the future until a pandemic, and then suddenly everybody goes, whoops, oh my God, all this stuff is going horribly wrong. You need to take a step back. You need to think, not what can we not do? Oh my God, we can't do this, we can't do that, we can't do that. All is doomed. You can't do that. What you must do is take a view and say, what can I do? What can I do today that will make a difference? What can I do tomorrow that will make a difference? What can I do with other people where we could all make a difference and create something? We have to do things differently because normal things won't work in this environment. And what I've discovered is that is a wonderful, it's like nature's cattle prod. Apply more voltage, right? Suddenly you think of ideas because you have to. You think of those ideas because you have to. And then you realize that when the world returns to what we perceive of as being normal, the ideas that you came out with when the world was not normal, actually some of those ideas are pretty good in their own right. You think, why didn't I think of those ideas before? Think of it as a gift. I had cancer 5 years ago, and it was pretty hard for the first week or so to think of that as being a gift. But actually, in hindsight, it was. I had osteoarthritis in my left hip, and I battled against it for 1.5 years and grunted in pain and all the rest of it. And then I took inspiration from Lewis Hamilton, who, under the safety car, when there's an accident or something, he comes in, changes his front wing, changes his tyres, out on fresh rubber, ready to go. He's not intending to lose the race. He's intending to win the race, and that's his plan. So when I had cancer, I was not intending to check out anytime soon. I realised it was a possibility, but there was nothing. I cannot change that outcome if that outcome was going to be that. What can I do? I can make a plan. I can make a plan for the future. I can make a plan for, let's go and start the process of learning to fly a 747. Let's do the ground school. Let's lay the groundwork. Let's assume I'm going to be able to do that because I came back and flew a 747 on the tour after I came back from cancer. Let's have a look at this guy. Winston Churchill. Controversial figure for some. I'm not even going to bother talking about his many flaws, his many faults, his many problems, because people have all kinds of opinions. But I'm going to tell you one thing, that if you're an entrepreneur, if you want to be in business, if you want to be in life, one thing you can take from this man: dogged determination when it matters. And when it mattered to the whole world, you can look at all the things that Churchill did and say, well, I don't approve of that, that was nasty, that was horrible, we wouldn't do that in this day and age, he was rude to people, blah, 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 blah. But he stood up to an unpleasant man with a toothbrush moustache who wanted to annihilate large ethnic communities and, Adolf Hitler, the Nazis, everything. He stood up to him against, it has to be said, some of the people in the establishment, a lot of people who were in his government. He stood alone and inspired a nation to stand alone against the monster that had carved up continental Europe and would have carved up the world had we not stood there for a while and waited for America and everybody else to catch up. Determination. Churchill, determination. Just remember that, because for all the ideas you have, for all the great moments of inspiration, for all the technology, for all the AI, for all the other stuff you want to put out there in the world, none of it is worth anything without the determination. My sister rides horses. She does it professionally. She's fallen off and broken most of the bones in her body, even though she's a very good rider. When you fall off a horse, there's only two options. You go, I'm never going to get on a bloody horse again. Or you look it in the eyes and you get back on the horse. If you're going to be in business, if you're going to be an entrepreneur, the first option is not an option for you. If you're the person that falls off a horse and goes, I'm scared to get back on the horse, maybe you should think of a different line of work. Because you need that little bit of Churchill determination, and you need the ability to confront your fear and your demon and go, I need to surmount that. We just need to get over that obstacle. So that's the hard part of the talk. The easy bit is talking about creativity and how wonderful it is and how fun it is and how frothy it is. The hard part is getting it done and sticking with it when the chips are down, sticking with it when you're losing money, sticking with it when you're not sleeping except for like 2 or 3 hours a night. That's the hard part. And it is hard, and it will be hard, but you will succeed, and you will derive immense benefit personally out of that experience. Anyway, it's time. There is time. Well, there is time, there's future time, there's past time, and this is my watch. It's the Ed Force One Captain's watch. This is what happens when you get drunk with a French watchmaker. I'll say no more. I've already said enough. The damage has been done. Bye for now.